Lexus, just drop the F Sport, please. You can do it for appearance. You can give it sporty looks, but give us big, soft, cushy suspension and big sidewalls. The cars would be better for it. The toughest thing that the TX has going for it is the fact that the Grand Highlander exists, and the Grand Highlander is really, really good. Hey everybody, it's Charlie from Daily Motor, and I've been spending a week with the Lexus TX. An entirely new model for Lexus, features 3 usable rows of people storage, a 5,000 pound tow rating, and unlike the traditional body-on-frame SUVs that are the GX and the LX, this TX model is what more people refer to as a crossover. It is a unibody machine, which for all intents and purposes you need to know is that it's going to ride softer than those models, and you can make more efficient use of the interior space because there's not a frame underneath the vehicle that the body rides on top of. This is a model that Lexus has needed for a long time. I personally know family members who like to buy Lexus vehicles, and they currently have a GX. I think they've had an LX in the past, but ultimately they've simply wanted a large Lexus crossover. In fact, they also had a Toyota Sequoia at one point, but for the longest time both Toyota and Lexus didn't have a usable 3-row crossover like this that wasn't a big V8 fuel sucking, rough riding kind of off-road chops capable vehicle. This is what a lot of people have wanted from Lexus. And after spending a week with the car, I'm satisfied, but I'm not blown away. And perhaps that's about what Lexus is going for here. I mean, they've got a competent product. They have something that looks good, drives well, is, I'd say, appropriately priced, has all the features both in safety and technology that people want in this price point, so it's going to sell well. There's no question about that. In fact, it even comes in 3 different powertrain options: a normal turbocharged engine, a turbocharged hybrid setup, and then a plug-in hybrid option, which I would probably go with. Despite it costing a lot more, it's got the naturally aspirated 3.5 liter V6 paired up with a plug-in hybrid, so you're going to have arguably the most reliable engine that Toyota and Lexus have out, and then you've also got the plug-in hybrid capability. So even though it's going to be heavier and cost more, I would probably shoot for that one. Not only that, but Lexus made the weird call of only offering this mid-level hybrid powertrain with the F Sport package, and I think that's a terrible idea. I don't understand why this badge belongs on a Lexus TX, a large 3-row crossover whatsoever. I actually don't know anybody personally who is looking for a large Lexus crossover that has sporting capabilities. So when you get this F Sport package, you get adaptive suspension, which in theory should make it so it rides smooth when you're not in sport mode, and then when you shift into sport mode, it's going to drive sporty. But ultimately, between the sport tuned suspension and the 22-inch wheels, everybody claims that this car rides rougher than the 350 counterpart. Now, I have not driven the 350 or the 550h, but driving this one, I can tell you, yeah, it seems a little bit firm. And I know that with 2 inches of more sidewall on the wheels and a softer suspension, we'd be able to get a softer ride. So I am a bit perplexed that why did Lexus even bother doing that? And I kind of suspect that the auto magazines that do instrumented testing are partially to blame, because you'll read a Car and Driver or a Motor Trend article, and full disclosure, I used to work for Car and Driver. I think there's a lot of value in the instrumented testing, but for a car like this, they shouldn't be bothering to do skid pad testing. For those of you who don't know, skid pad is when they drive around in a circle as fast as they can before the tires lose grip and the car falls off the circle. They're trying to see how quickly, essentially, you can do a 360-degree circle. And I totally understand why that's relevant for a sports car, or even something like a sport compact or something like that, something that people are going to want to take corners quickly in. But when you do that sort of testing on a car like this and then report on it, and if it does poorly, then report poorly, the manufacturers, they don't want to do poorly in any segment, and that's a very clear data point that they can improve upon. They can say, oh, well, we'll give it grippier rubber, and we'll firm up the suspension a little bit, try to keep all 4 tires on the ground as much as possible, and then it'll do better in skid pad, and it'll get better marks for the handling category. But ultimately, if you're driving a car like this, you want it to be as plush and comfortable and smooth as possible. I really doubt you're getting up toward 0.8 G on the skid pad, which, mind you, there was only a 0.03 difference in skid pad capability between the 350 that Car and Driver tested and this 500H. And they said right in their article, yeah, this car is kind of fun to hustle around corners, but we noticed the ride is firm. And then you look at Motor Trend's article, and they said, yeah, it didn't really do that fantastic in our figure eights skid pad testing, and also it rode firm. So Lexus, just drop the F Sport, please. You can do it for appearance. You can give it sporty looks, but give us big, soft, cushy suspension and big sidewalls. The cars would be better for it. All right, that's my last F Sport rant. We're getting off it until the next time Lexus decides to give me an F Sport vehicle. The other qualm I have about the TX is actually the existence of Toyota's Grand Highlander. For those of you who don't know, the Grand Highlander just came out for Toyota as well, and is essentially this same vehicle, but with a Toyota badge. And you can still get this powertrain, the 2.4 liter turbocharged engine with the hybrid, the electric motors, kind of helping things out here. And that car starts at about $20,000 less than you're seeing this one. It's like high 50s or so for the upper trim package for the Hybrid Max Grand Highlander. And this one, as you're looking at it, is 78 grand. And I gotta say, again, this is nice. You know, it looks different, and it's got nice interior materials. The sound system's a little bit better. But the Grand Highlander is really nice too. And this TX still feels a class below things like the BMW X7 and the Mercedes GLS and the Audi Q7, which I know is a little bit smaller. This is still one of those examples of Lexus kind of being in the tier below those top level luxury cars. So we're talking more like Infinitis and Acuras. That's kind of more where the Lexus is slotting in here. Genesis as well, you can throw in. So for me personally, even if I were in this segment, even if I were looking for something like a $100,000 car, 3-row crossover like this, I'd probably go with the top tier Toyota, especially because you're getting the same powertrain. It's only down about 5 to 10 horsepower and pound-feet of torque, but you can put regular gasoline in it, whereas you have to put premium in the Lexus. We'll say the Lexus gives you slow power-adjusted rear third-row seats here. Hold this, and then those fold themselves down, and you can fold them up and down from the front screen as well. That's good to have. Bring that back up. Fairly high load surface right here. It's over my mid-thigh, but at least it's flat, so you can get things in and out of there. You can slide them in and out. With the hybrid version here, you're losing any sort of underfloor storage. Looks like we got a 1500 watt wall-style outlet back there with this hybrid powertrain, and the ability to put a little bit of a cargo cover. Let's fold this seat down and see how flat that gets. I know that was a big point of frustration with the new Sequoia, is how poorly the third row is laid out. Not having that here in the TX. Once that gets closed, look at that. Nice flat load surface. Some carpet there to bridge the gap. Very usable bit of room. And we'll get there in a sec, but the third row has a nice little squishy elbow pad, some cup holders, a USB port on both sides, and has enough room for full-size adults. The door handles on the TX are all powered, and then you just kind of press a button behind. I don't mind that, and what I actually appreciate about it is it makes it so there's proxy key on all 4 doors. So if you're carrying a car seat or something in your arms and you need to go directly out to your car and get into the rear, even if it's locked, it'll unlock itself, and you can also lock it from right there. Rear sunshades, leather on this top level, this upgraded premium trim or whatever we've got. You got the real leather, not the fake leather. Mark Levinson sound system as well. We've got a dedicated review on that. Check the link in the description. A little bit of Alcantara on the seats as well, even way back here in the third row. So this is a very nice place to be, don't get me wrong. I'm not claiming that the Grand Highlander is as nice as the TX. It's just, you really gotta look into those cost benefit way-offs, if you will. Yeah, full room. I'm 5'10". My knees are a little bit up. This wouldn't be comfortable for something like a 4-hour trip, but maybe plenty fine for kind of like a mini road trip or day-to-day use. In the second row, I would usually have more room than this, but the driver's seat is moved all the way back in the easy entry mode. These are kind of interesting. There's this big center console area, and this whole thing comes out so that you could put something in between here, and then flips back in. And you can also remove these little cup holders. Give yourself a little bit more space if you'd rather have that layout, and they kind of just click themselves back in as well. Back here you've got another wall-style outlet, 2 USB-C ports, and climate control. Both heated and ventilated seats for these captain's chairs in this top-level model. Do keep an eye out if you're going to build yourself out a TX. You have to pay a decent amount to get a heated steering wheel, so keep that in mind. Heated steering wheel and ventilated seats are not standard. If you're getting that 350 model, you really got to be careful with your options because it's fairly Spartan if you don't check the right boxes and packages. I'm so happy that Toyota and Lexus are moving toward a fully hybridized and electrified lineup, because this 2.4 liter engine is so much smoother in this car paired up with the electric motors than it was in the RX that we drove recently that was just the turbo, no hybrid. That RX was, the powertrain just did not fit the character of the car. It was certainly frustrating. With the hybrid, you have that 2.4 liter turbo, yes, so it's still a little loud and it's got to work kind of hard to move this big truck around, but the electric motors can step in and fill in any sort of power gaps and help out the engine so it's not having to wring itself out just to get going. Now you'll have noticed if you watch regularly that I did quite a lot of this video static, and that's because the driving experience of the TX is pretty vanilla. It certainly feels like an crossover from Lexus. Like if you asked AI, build me a Lexus 3-row crossover, this is it. You've got good infotainment with Lexus's newer infotainment system. If you haven't used this yet on one of the newer Lexus or Toyota models, it is quite good. I don't even think Lexus really bothered to do any sort of reskinning compared to the Toyota model. Maybe the colors are a little bit different, but they're pretty similar in terms of how they work. You get an optional 12.3-inch gauge cluster screen in the upper models of the TX. It's a little bit of information overload. I highly recommend if you purchase this car to sit in your driveway for a while, play around with the functionality. We do have a video that walks you through how to use and set up both the gauge cluster and the infotainment screen. But either way, the most important thing is just for you to play around with it and customize it, because it can be overwhelming if you don't do that. Wireless CarPlay and wireless Android Auto support, very important. Also a wireless device charger up there. If you are taking advantage of the F-sporting abilities of this car though, your device will probably slide around on that wireless device charger because it's just a flat slab of a Qi charger, and I much prefer the ones that kind of hold your device in place. But gosh, this is quiet. We took it out on our highway fuel economy test last night. We got 27 mpg, and it's just a nice place to be. I mean, what do you expect? We got comfortable Lexus seats, got a strong Mark Levinson sound system, good ergonomics, quiet. Like I said, if we just had a little bit more sidewall, a little bit smoother riding experience and driving experience, pretty much nothing to complain about with this car. Lexus is throwing a ton of safety features at you in this car, and I will say, I don't know if it's because they're set up differently or what, but this car is beeping at me a lot less than the RX that we had. The RX seemed to constantly be nagging for one or the other sort of safety reasons, and don't get me wrong, I appreciate safety functionalities. I leave them on in all of my cars. I am thankful for them. But there was something about that RX that was almost counterintuitive. It was yelling at you for so many standard driving things that you almost got beep overload and you stopped paying attention to the warning chimes as much. This TX doesn't seem to be doing that. I don't know, again, if things are calibrated differently or set up differently or what, but I've quite enjoyed driving this around. Newer Lexus models are coming with these haptic controlled steering wheel buttons, and it makes it so that if you want to adjust your track selection for your media or adjust your cruise control, you have to rub this button a little bit in order to get it to detect your finger and then click it. Either that or you can press down, click once, and click again. It's a subtle annoyance. It's not enough to be bang your head against the wall annoying, but I will say, after driving it for an hour and a half last night on the highway, I was still frustrated that an action of adjusting my speed while using cruise control or changing to the next track, and there was an action that typically only takes one motion, was requiring two motions, and that's double the motion. It sounds petty, but it's annoying. Not only that, but you don't have any sort of physical track selection ability here, so if you're clicking through tracks on your playlist, there's no easy way to do that. I suppose this review is maybe coming off a little bit negative, and it really shouldn't be, because this car is really, really good. The fact that what I have to say about it are such subtle nitpicks in terms of the ride should be a little bit smoother, and what else have I even complained about? The cost a little bit and the slowness of the rear seats. I mean, Toyota and Lexus have absolutely killed it with this platform, with both the Grand Highlander and now this TX. And it absolutely makes sense that Lexus would have this TX version. I mean, what more could you expect this to be? It just does its job, and it does it really well. And the biggest example of that I can think of is the fact that this should be a fairly ponderous, unenjoyable car to be in, just by how large it is, and kind of like, all right, I gotta go drive the TX. But I've been totally happy to go out and spend time in this car and driving it around, running it on errands. I've been satisfied. I've been content. I've been happy to spend time in this car. And when you consider how many different cars I drive, that's a praise in and of itself. This is a great powertrain. It's a great interior layout. I think it looks the part. Yeah, just make it ride a little bit smoother and forget that the Grand Highlander exists. You've got yourself a good car here. The toughest thing that the TX has going for it is the fact that the Grand Highlander exists, and the Grand Highlander is really, really good. All right, well, thank you all so much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions. Hopefully I could add a little color to your potential TX shopping experience. If you do want to see more on the car, check the link below. I know a lot of people have been asking about that Mark Levinson sound system. And we'll see you on the next one. I'm Charlie from Daily Motor, and as always, Lexus 3-row on.